Hi, it's Pete Martin, founder and CEO of Ask My Board and the co-creator of the 8-Figure Exits program. Hey, the tip we're going to talk about today is this startling fact that I really want you to wrap your head around, and it's totally preventable to you. And the upside of fixing this particular issue when it comes to exiting your business also helps you sleep better at night, because it's focused on the 3 biggest risks to your business operationally and the 3 biggest risks that could kill a deal. 50% of deals that go into letter of intent or a purchase, not a purchase agreement, but a letter of intent or some kind of a term sheet that get through due diligence don't close. 50%. Now, here's the downside of that. It takes a lot of money, attorneys, M&A advisors, whoever is on your team to help you out, go through the due diligence process. There's a lot of emotion, there's time, there's effort, there's lack of focus on the business because you're trying to focus on getting the deal done. And to go through all of that exercise with the risk of employees finding out, deciding that they're going to quit or go to a competitor, competitors finding out you're going through this process and trying to poach your employees or trying to poach your customers. This is a big, big deal if the deal actually doesn't close. So I'm going to give you some tips today to put the things in place in your business to ensure and increase the odds that a deal will happen if you get to that point. And if you do this, whether you sell or not, you solve some of the biggest risks in your business. Now, there's only 3 categories of risks that matter. There's employee risk, customer risk, and supplier risk. Let's talk about each one individually. But let's talk with customer risk first, because this is the one that kills most deals, and it's around customer concentration. So customer concentration means what percentage of your revenues come from a limited number of your customers. You want to be in a position where no customer represents more than around 10% of your business. And the reason for that is if I'm a buyer and I'm buying your business, again, I've tried to emphasize in a lot of these tips that I'm not buying your past, I'm buying my collective future. So if I'm not convinced that customer is going to stay with the business going forward, and more specifically, if that customer represents a really large percentage of the revenues, even at closing, they may say, I don't want to do business with you because it's a new company and I like Fred, and Fred is the owner of the company and I've been doing business with Fred for 20 years. It's a huge, huge risk. So having customer concentration in your business is a great way to either not get the deal done at all, or certainly to lower the valuation of the company. So that's the first one, is trying to avoid customer concentration. Second one is employee risk. And this is pretty obvious. If you have some key employees that are fundamental to the operations of the business, whether that's your key salespeople, it's some key executives, key folks that provide the operational delivery of your product or your service, if they leave the company, again, it's a huge risk to the buyer of the business, because then either sales goes down or you can't deliver on whatever your product or service is. And so they're really going to focus in on those key personnel. In fact, in a process of an exit process, they're going to ask you to name those key personnel. And part of the effort in the conversation will be around, what can you do to make sure you retain them? You may want to give them some more money at closing. You may want to give them a bonus to stay. There's all kinds of things you can do to make sure that those key employees are part of the future transaction of the business. Now, the things that we're going to have you do as it relates to retaining employees, again, whether you exit or not, are going to be relevant for just running the day-to-day business and reducing those risks in the company. The third category of risk is around supplier risk. And so if the delivery of your product or service is dependent on a particular key supplier or suppliers, we saw this during COVID. We've seen this a couple times in the last really 10 years where we had supply chain issues, and those supply chain issues had a profound and material impact on a lot of companies' ability to actually deliver product. We've seen this over and over again. So that's one of the things that a buyer is going to evaluate is there any supplier risk? And if you don't have alternative sources of supply, or that supplier goes out of business, or they become constrained themselves, and it impacts your ability to deliver or to sell, it's a risk that they're going to look at. So those are the three categories of risk: customer risk, employee risk, or personnel risk, which could be contractors as well, by the way, and supplier risk. So really focus on all of those and kind of think through what are the major risks to the business from both an exit perspective and in terms of just running the day-to-day business. Now, one of the tools we have in our program is called, it's kind of a funny name, but it's the Switzerland structure. Switzerland as a country is neutral, right? So you want to be in this position where any one of those risks is relatively neutral. If you lose a customer, yeah, it might be bad, but maybe they don't make up so much of your revenue that it's not a material impact to the business. Same thing with employees and same thing with suppliers. So this tool is a pretty cool tool. So it helps you not only evaluate across those three dimensions of risk, but helps you put together a very specific plan to diversify revenue away from that concentration and getting some more customers, or there's lots of things you can do there. With employees, this tool will help you put together a very specific retention strategy before an exit ever even happens, to make sure that you have some of your employees are cross-trained to take over some other folks, and that you've got a very specific retention strategy to keep your best people. And then again, on the supplier side, same thing, that a very specific strategic roadmap to make sure that you have alternative sources of supply if this is a risk for your business. And so once you go through all three of these strategic exercises, your business is in a much, much better place. And your ability then to exit successfully goes up dramatically, because the risk to the buyer then goes down. Hope you found this useful, and we'll see you on the next step.